Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your somewhat distracted, but we're going live host, the real _ G Warner on Twitter. If you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, leave a 5-star review. It will get me up the search boards, and I'll read the good reviews. Gonna also plug and mention my Patreon subscribers, my patrons today, because you deserve a shout out. Thank you for coming along on the journey with me. We're off to a good start there. And this is an episode midweek, going to go over the English Premier League as we have an English Volca, as the Germans would call it. Only 2 days, maybe 3 days off between matches, which is a big deal. Also the same story in Spain. Plus we have Coppa Italia from Italy. If that wasn't obvious, I'm going to give off an ultimate best bet as always. Don't have a pregame.com promo code today, but I do have a bet online promo code if you're interested in that. Look for a new sports book. Highly recommend going over there. Good people. Sometimes you might struggle with their customer service, but Dave Mason runs a great shop over there, and I've got nothing but good things to say about them. And we're going to record an ultimate best bet end of show, so stick around. And we're just going to go through everything from start to finish. It's late night with the real _ G Warner, as always. Try to get this done earlier, but of course, just never seems to happen. So let's go in. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juices offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description, fund your account, and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. Now that you got some extra money in your account, we'll be mentioning I love you patrons. You're going to get a shout out probably once we get to a point where I have so many I can't do it. I don't know what I'm going to do then. But for now, I'm definitely going to start and mention that later in the show. So stick around. You get your time in the time to shine, time in the sun, whatever I'm supposed to be saying. It's late. Let's just get into it instead of me saying dumb stuff. So starting the Premier League, we got Tuesday matches starting all in the afternoon here in the US. So that's at least nice. So I got some time to play, and we got some time to figure out who we're backing, get some ideas out there before lineups show up, because unfortunately it's really hard to know what's going to happen. My general rule for right now is that it's really hard to know who's in good shape right now physically. It seems like, unfortunately, until lineups come out 1 hour before game time, you might get a leak out a little bit early, but that's hard to really trust. You don't know what random account on Twitter actually knows what they're talking about, beat writers, or if they have some sort of fan page, maybe they're a little more trustworthy than randoms, but also they might not have the best information. So hard to say. So at least an hour before games, that's when my eyes are peeled. I'm looking really hard. It is nice to see the best team or the best players starting back-to-back matches, but unfortunately you got to downgrade a lot of the thin squads that don't have a lot of ability to rotate. In the past, in a few years, I've been doing this and really focusing on soccer so much in the club seasons rather than just international tournaments. I really love the lower kind of tier teams that would just play the same starting lineup. Unfortunately, it's really tough for them to come back a couple days after and still put out a good performance, especially against even a big team that might be rotating. Those rotated players are going to be much better quality. Generally, they're paid a lot more to play for those big clubs, and the rest advantage is huge. There's a reason why, unfortunately, it's brutal, but there's a reason why there's so many late goals in these matches, so many stoppage time goals to kill unders or kill side bets or just kill myself. It makes me want to, but that's because these big clubs, they have big budgets, they have good players, better players than the others, and rest is a big deal. So with that said, don't have lineups yet, of course, for the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday we're going to cover. But want to leave that keep that in mind for what we're going through here. And now that I've said it, hopefully you've all heard it loud and clear, and we can figure out some winners. So starting in England, we have Wolves hosting Crystal Palace. Currently Wolves a quarter goal favorite. All the juice on Crystal Palace on the road. Over under is just a 2. Very juiced the over. Wolves with a pretty disappointing taking a lead this weekend, but then losing 2-1 at Leicester. Big win for Leicester, of course, but Wolves, unfortunately, deserve a lot of demerits. Ultimately, they're not a good offense. So when they take a 1-0 lead, that should have been enough. Hard to stay with that, as Jose Mourinho found out when he was at Tottenham in the current English Premier League. But Leicester coming out of nowhere. Wolves had a lot of chances and didn't take them. Now they get a home game. They're still not safe, technically. And I guess since I am caught up on everything so far, I watched a lot of soccer this weekend. I might as well pull up the standings. But I don't know necessarily that's going to play into everyone because no one is technically safe yet if you're on the bottom half of the table, it seems. Wolves at 34 points. They're 6 points ahead of Everton, but that's 2 losses, and then they're in big trouble. No playoff for relegation in the English Premier League. So what are Wolves? They're a really physical team. Lopetegui's brought in a lot to that team. And honestly, I really wanted to, and I have been backing them very often. Was very disappointed, backed them this weekend, very disappointed in their collapse against Leicester, but it happens, I guess. Currently is a quarter goal favorite against a Crystal Palace team that's been awesome since Roy Hodgson came in. I did get a win on the Crystal Palace under this weekend. Don't think there was a goal scored in that one, which is honestly my favorite result in all of sports, is a goalless draw. Pays the under, pays underdogs. It's really, really nice. But unfortunately, I don't know that Crystal Palace, I mean, they've been so good offensively since Roy Hodgson took over, which is really bizarre because he's a defensive manager. But it's been big for him. And I do feel like that's the side I'd want. It's very juiced right now, Crystal Palace on the road. But I feel like they are the more trustworthy. I mean, it's hard to say the more trustworthy offense because I don't know that I trust them at all. Wilf Zaha does not seem like he's going to be available for this one. I think it's really 2 offenses that aren't very good. So I think probably my biggest interest is the under 2, but I don't really want to play numbers that low. I do like the Premier League because they give far fewer penalties. I don't have the stats in front of me, but it's probably a third as many penalties as are given in La Liga, but which we'll get to next. Next league we'll go through is Spain. But I'm interested. I want to see this one creep up to 2.25. I think we might get it based on where the juices are right now. 2 is a tiny total for a Premier League match, but it's deserved based on these 2 lack of offenses. Crystal Palace, a great home team, but don't have that advantage at home. They probably have a decent amount of crowd traveling for them. Though I think they'd probably see more if they're in more trouble with they're 9 points ahead of Everton in the 18th position in the Premier League right now. So not safe necessarily, but close to being there. And I think you'll see a good defensive effort from Crystal Palace. I think both of these teams are good defenses. I don't really trust their offenses much, which makes me lean to the underdog and the under. Next, we go Aston Villa. 15 minutes later on Tuesday, they're hosting Fulham. Currently, Aston Villa, a 3-quarter goal favorite. All the juice on Fulham on the road right now. Over unders 2.5. Juice the over. A couple podcasts I've listened to have really been saying that Fulham are just maybe on the beach, maybe dead. The 8-game suspension for Mitrovic in a FA Cup match really impacted their pursuit of Europe. That probably was far-fetched, but not really considering how poor some of the best teams in Premier League have been. Fulham currently on 45 points in 9th position. They are, 7th might get in there. So they're only 5 points back of Liverpool right now, sitting in 7th place. So it's not dead. Go on a big run. They could be there. Aston Villa have climbed all the way up to 6th on 51 points. They've played one more match than Fulham, and unfortunately, with all the cancellations, RIP the Queen, I guess. We had to cancel 2 weeks of football, but only some of them, plus the multiple tournaments they play in England. It's honestly maniacal what's going to have to go out. I mean, Brighton have 2 matches every week, it seems like, for the rest of eternity. But as for this match, Aston Villa is a big favorite here. 3-quarter goal favorite. Was nowhere. The line would have been nowhere near this earlier in the season, but they played well. They've kind of deserved it. Unai Emery, great defensive manager, has had a lot of offensive success in the Premier League, which is surprising ever since he jumped from Villarreal in La Liga, but much better run for him than his time at Arsenal, to say the least. But Fulham, they've been a good defense this year. I don't know necessarily that it's been so good lately, unfortunately. And they did get a good victory against Leeds, but who isn't beating Leeds at this point? And it took them a while to score 2 goals. They did, I think, take a 2-0 lead, then gave one up late or second half to make it a little bit more nervy at the end, but they really have nothing to play for and feel like a beach team at this point. 3/4 of a goal feels a little high to me. It's my first time looking at the numbers live, as I'm sure everyone loves, but I think it's a good way for me to give my raw feedback on what I'm seeing here. So that number feels a little big to me. Problem is, I don't know how Fulham are going to score. Without Mitrovic, they've done nothing offensively. I mean, Solomon was figured out on cutting in from the left side on his right foot. That worked for a couple matches. Dan James, not really a goal scorer at all. I mean, Ricardo Pereira looks like the guy that if you're going to pick one in FPL, for example, that's the guy you want. I don't know that's what I want, but I do feel like under 2.5 is probably my strongest lean in this one. Aston Villa, their defense has been a problem. I think that's why Steven Gerrard ultimately lost this job. They brought in defensive center back as replacements, and that didn't really work because they got hurt. Sad story, but Villa have really kind of shrugged that off, to say the least. I think if anything, I like under 2.5 most in this one. And I'll move on to the last on Tuesday, which is Leeds and Leicester, a rematch of a murder scene, whatever you want to call it. I feel like it was Monday of last week, like a week ago. Crazy that they're playing twice in a 38 match season that takes 38 weeks or whatever, almost the entire year, to play twice in 8 days in the league. Seems ridiculous, but whatever. I don't make the schedules. So Leeds currently a quarter goal favorite. Sorry, Leeds just played Liverpool. It's late. Okay, Liverpool is not happening this time. It's Leeds Leicester. Too many L's. But a lot of both these teams are prepared and good at taking L's themselves. But anyway, Leeds quarter goal favorite to Leicester right now. Over unders 2 3/4, slightly juice the under. Leeds are in big trouble. They should have been going down this year. It's amazing that they went from Bielsa to Jesse Marsch and thought that was a good idea. But they're just not really a good offensive team. Their defense is pretty leaky. Not a good combination in the hardest league in all of the world. Leicester also in trouble. Somehow both these teams are out of the relegation zone. But I mean, the sad part about relegation odds going into the year is that they were so low Everton at 4-1, one of the most storied clubs in England. I mean, you can't really take that because it's so small and there's so many teams that could get relegated. And literally there's, 13 through 20 are all within 6 points of the last relegation position. So geez, there's so much going on there. But from where I sit with this one, Leeds are not a worthy favorite. They have a great home crowd. I'll give them that. But I don't really trust them to score at all. I feel like when they do, it feels very fluky. Their defense is pretty leaky as well. There are some injury concerns with Leicester. Jamie Vardy shouldn't keep starting, but he drew a really not soft because he got crunched, but ridiculous penalty from Jose Sa, the Wolves goalkeeper, stepping on his ankle in the box for the first goal, which Kelechi Iheanacho put away. But I think my interest in this one, it's hard for me to play a total because the Leicester defense is so bad. If anything, I think I like over, which is, I know I've been saying this a few times lately on recent episodes, but for the 2 overs I give out on every podcast, it seems that this is probably one of them. But I lean to Leicester getting that quarter of a goal. I don't know that I like them enough for an ultimate best bet right now because there's some injury concerns that I want to see. I want to see what their defense looks like. I do kind of trust it more than I trust Leeds. Leeds do play better at home and seem like they can find some goals out of nowhere. But I like to bet against teams that find goals out of nowhere that don't really create much, that seem to score flukes. I don't expect those to happen very often, especially in a very competitive league. So Leicester getting a quarter is my interest right now, I guess, as well as the over 2 3/4. Moving to Wednesday, we have Nottingham Forest hosting Brighton. Currently, Nottingham Forest, a 1-goal underdog at home. Over under is 2 3/4, juice the under. Brighton coming off 120 minutes and a really disappointing penalty shootout loss to Manchester United. And it really, are they ever going to have a better shot to make a cup final? I'm not sure. Hopefully they do. And they certainly are built playing pretty well this season, to say the least. They're in really good shape at the table as well. The odds are back, but it's late, so it makes a little more sense. Currently Brighton in 8th, but on only 29 matches played, I think the least of anybody in this entire thing. Only, 10 points back of Champions League right now, though that's a long way to get there, I guess. But Europe only 1 point behind of Liverpool, have played 2 more matches. So they're in good shape. Playing Nottingham Forest, also not bad, sitting 19th in the table. 1 point from safety in that Leicester City sitting there. So Nottingham Forest, weird stuff with John Joe Shelby, that he was really upset not getting put in the starting lineup, that Steve Cooper just told him to stay home. A manager trying to assert his authority dominance, does have a long-term contract, but those get ripped up quicker than, But quicker than FTX billing statements, maybe, because those get shredded or they're just talked about in a mail fraud. Anyway, jokes are probably not worth it this hour. But Nottingham Forest, a 1-goal underdog at home, pretty big price, but Brighton have been a really good team. We'll see how they respond to going out of a cup final, essentially, that they felt like they had on their foot, which it literally was in the penalty shootout. I do expect that Brighton are going to fight for a European place. And I don't think that they're necessarily going to, they probably need to rotate off 120 minutes, but this is go time for them. They've got a lot of double matches coming up. I think that, this number at +1, I've been kind of against Brighton more than I'd like to admit this season because I haven't really believed in their scoring. They've done it really well. Graham Potter left. Roberto De Zerbi came in. It didn't really seem to phase them too much, which is surprising. Very offensive coach, but they've still been really solid defensively somehow. Brighton with a really good possession team probably will keep the ball from Nottingham Forest quite a bit. Nottingham Forest, their fans will be nuts in this one, rabid, you might even say, because they need it. Because if they don't go crazy, they're probably not going to be in the Premier League next year. With that said, I feel like there's a good chance that Brighton have to rotate or they have some dead tired guys on the road going to a tough place to play. The more I talk about this, the more I'm getting interested in Nottingham Forest. I wasn't expecting that coming into this one, but I am. Along those lines, I lean to under as well because I feel like Brighton's creativity in possession is going to be, I don't know that you really need a ton of legs for how much they control the ball. I think it's worse if you're trying to defend the whole time, but ultimately, I think any sort of tired legs might affect Brighton on their sprints trying to get through Nottingham Forest, but ultimately they're trying to cut through them. I do expect Nottingham Forest to play a conservative brand of football, play pretty defensively, sit back. I know they need 3 points here, but I think they've seen how ruthless Brighton is in front of net. So I think they're going to try it in front of the goal. So I think they're going to try their best to try to keep Brighton out. And that's their strategy to then somehow get a set piece, corner kick, something like that to get a goal. Cause they're not really going to be able to create much. They do have the ability to use Brendan Johnson's speed on counterattacks or kind of releasing him and using his pace. Problem is, I don't really love what Stevie Cooper's been doing with playing Awani. He hasn't really worked in this system in the Premier League. Big jump from the Bundesliga where he's so good for Union Berlin. They haven't really missed him, but he hasn't really come on in this league. Unfortunately, I think it's kind of speaks to the limited ability around him, I think, in this club, despite how much money Nottingham Forest spent. Anyway, not really needed to talk macro about Nottingham Forest and their transfer moves this year. But I think it's a good spot for Nottingham Forest. We'll see how good it is and see what lineups look like on Wednesday. Next, we'll go Chelsea hosting Brentford. Currently, Chelsea a 3/4 goal favorite. A little more juice on the home team. Over under is 2.5. Juice the under. Brentford has not been getting very nice lines. Not a lot of respect from the marketplace. Maybe a lot of people thinking that they're potentially on the beach, but I don't think they're giving up yet. Currently on 44 points. Europe's not that far away, ultimately. And they're 5 points ahead of the same Chelsea team, which I think they drew 0-0, I want to say, at home, which was a good result for Brentford when they played last time. That probably is a bad result for them now, but they're a 3/4 goal favorite. I don't believe in Chelsea whatsoever. I think Brentford have been scoring a ton of goals, which is a little bit surprising for who they are and kind of who they've been built to be. But I lean to that under 2.5 as well as to Brentford. And those are the type of plays I want, is when I like the road underdog and the under against a team that really can't score. Chelsea fit that perfectly. I think Brentford are just as likely to win this match of getting 3/4 on the road. Yes, it's tough to go to Stamford Bridge where Chelsea are great, but they've been so bad this year. I don't really think I'm afraid that 25, like quarter of a goal for even teams would be, I think, sufficient. Probably would never happen based on how much Chelsea money hits, especially with how much money is bet in England as well, especially on big fan bases, things of that nature. But Brentford are, maybe they get smoked here, but I think I'll pay to see it. West Ham then hosts Liverpool. Currently West Ham a 1/2 goal underdog at home. Over unders 2 3/4. Very juiced the over, which makes sense based on Liverpool and how they don't defend and they are all out attack at this point. West Ham defensively, great performance at Bournemouth. They are a good set piece team. They took advantage of a team that's awful at defending set pieces. And it might have gotten them out of the relegation zone. Also came back from behind to beat Ghent in the Europa Conference League. So it's been a really good week for West Ham, and they need them because are still fighting relegation, but are starting to look like they're pulling away from it. Now, they're going to want to play a counterattacking brand of football. Liverpool are going to be up the pitch. I don't really think they have that high press anymore now that Mane's gone. That's a big problem for them, unfortunately. Salah Mane, I think what made Liverpool the most dominant team that they were a few years ago, is not even close to being there anymore. Now they're just trying to outscore you, which does, I think, point to that over. I don't know that I can play an under with Liverpool right now, though the number's higher than I would expect for West Ham team. They showed that they scored a ton of goals last week. I feel like they scored a month's worth in those two games on Thursday and on Sunday. Quick turnaround. Liverpool didn't play midweek. So they're in much better rest shape. I want to see what West Ham puts together because unfortunately sitting back in defense is going to be really tiring for them. They have a deeper squad though, because they knew they were playing in Europe and had a lot higher expectations this season. I'm into the West Ham +1/2 because I love home underdogs. And I like the idea of fading Liverpool. Though Liverpool's offense looks really good right now. I'm not sure that'll make my card ultimately, but that's the way I lean for now. And we'll see juices on Liverpool side. Maybe this climbs as they're certainly the more popular team with a much bigger fan base. Last one and the big one for the title race is Manchester City, a 1-goal favorite to Arsenal. Juices split, over under is 3, juice the under. Hard for me to look away from Arsenal getting a full goal of insurance, but they have been in disastrous shape. They look like they weren't getting pressured early, but I mean, they made some big mistakes in recent matches, blowing 2-0 leads and then falling behind 2-0 to Southampton, if I remember correctly, or at least they're down 3-1. Getting a point and a draw was important, but that lead has essentially evaporated. Man City, with a game in hand, are only 5 points back, or 2 games in hand. And this match coming at home, a win at home, and as Man City are one goal favorite, then this thing is down to 2, and Arsenal's already peeing down their legs, and it's probably getting worse. For X's and O's, though, Arsenal really missing defender, unfortunately, as I hear this weird whistling in the background. Thought it was Twilight Zone or someone might be coming to kill me. Who knows? Hopefully not. If they did, it's on camera. But Arsenal, with this price leading the league +1, I mean, it's a gigantic number, but it's there because the market doesn't believe in them. Odds makers probably didn't when this line was initially set. As I'm looking at it for the first time, I can't tell you what it was before, but juice is pretty split. So I feel like this is, there's going to be a lot of Arsenal money coming in, though it can't be based on recent form. It would surely be based on the title race, and that if they lose by a single goal at the Etihad, bettors get a push. Maybe this moves a little bit higher. I think as it gets higher, the more interested I get, though I don't know. I mean, +1 is enough generally for me to want to play an underdog if I think they have a chance to win. I do think Arsenal has a chance here. They played Man City with backups in one of the cups. I think it was the FA Cup. It was very competitive, but ultimately with a rotated side, weren't expecting too much. You could argue that Mikel Arteta was so focused on the Premier League that he didn't want to show anything in that one, but Man City played their best, and I think it was a big momentum building win, but really didn't matter too much other than Arsenal just choking up games lately, or not playing well against league bottom Southampton at home as a 2-goal favorite. When I think about the total at 3, it's just the under. I think it's going to be a really tight match because both of these teams there's so much on the line. The problem is, I think that Arsenal's defense is really problematic. Like I said, missing Saliba. Gabriel is not someone I really trust, and he makes big mistakes at times. And Rob Holding just hasn't really looked anywhere near Premier League quality ever since the COVID year, maybe. They've got some big problems. I don't know why they didn't retain Cosentino Mavropanos instead of selling him to Stuttgart, but ultimately I think he's on a red card suspension right now, so it's probably not a great thing to talk about with him. But I gotta say, I'm interested in the +1 in Arsenal. I think it's one of those matches where I don't play it and they draw, I'm going to kick myself. But if they lose 3-0, certainly form book is pointing all the way to Manchester City, as is the home game, as is Arsenal feeling nervous and collapsing and choking up their lead. Just doesn't really feel like a great situation to back Arsenal, who haven't done it before, against the best team in the world. Moving to Thursday, Everton hosts Newcastle. Currently, Everton a 3/4 goal favorite. 3/4 goal underdog. Everton are at home with more juice right now, almost all of it. Over under is 2.5, juiced heavily to the under. Newcastle coming off a really, really huge outburst, scoring 6 goals against Tottenham. I mean, it was cut out their organs was probably a nice way to put it. Really great spot for Newcastle now. One game less played than Tottenham with a 6-point lead, plus whatever that, I guess head to head probably doesn't matter as much as goal differential, but gigantic at 29 right now. Looks like they deserve to be in third as they have the third highest goal differential. Interestingly enough, Liverpool fourth highest at 21, and they're sitting in seventh. But it's a big game, of course, for Everton on the other side. They got a big crowd. It's going to be way behind them. It's going to support them a lot. I think it's a quick turnaround for Newcastle. And if ever there's a time to sell high on Newcastle, it's after that evisceration of Tottenham. They're not at home. They don't play the same way on the road. They've been playing better offensively, but I still don't really trust them. Alexander Isak is a perfect player for getting out in space, but Everton won't give that. I feel like there's been a lot of talk about Sean Dyche's defense and strategy not really working as well because Everton is really poor defensively. I still think that he's someone I trust to keep a clean sheet or try the best he can to do everything he can to keep the opponent off the scoreboard. I think at home, there's gonna be a lot of help from that home crowd. I think every Newcastle shot that goes over the bar will get more and more of a jeer, and that will impact Newcastle a little bit. I think if I got +1 on Everton, I'd be interested in playing it, but I just don't know how they score goals, which I think just points me more towards under 2.5, if anything. I don't necessarily mind if it falls to 2.25, because I'm really trying to mind my juices and trying to reduce that as much as possible, but like the 2.5 right now. Moving next to Southampton hosting Bournemouth. Currently Southampton a quarter goal favorite at home, over unders 2.5. Very juicy the under, with most of the juice on Bournemouth as well. Bournemouth with a really embarrassing performance this weekend. We're a pick 'em at home to a team that was coming off 2 days ago playing in the Europa Conference League, but and we're also in kind of a similar fighting relegation boat, but this is a much bigger one. And Southampton, they just look lost. And so seeing Southampton as a favorite, yes, they're at home where they play a lot better, and that's a good thing, but it's really not that great. And ultimately makes me quite concerned that they're going to have real big trouble trying to keep this to support this number. I think Bournemouth have plenty of problems. When I look at the table, Bournemouth in 15th right now on 33 points, 5 points ahead of the last the best relegation spot, the 18th spot out of 20. Southampton are 9 points behind them. They've all played 32 matches, everyone from 14 down, from Wolves at 34 points all the way to Everton in the relegation zone at 28. So not a lot of advantages there from not having a game in hand or anything like that. And certainly they're going to be able to see what happens to to the other matches, but there's only 6 left. So it's kind of put up or shut up time. You need to go win. And I think Bournemouth are going to go on the road and they're going to sit back and counter. And that's exactly what they're made to do. They certainly are going to be working on set pieces after how bad they were last week. Southampton just doesn't really have anyone that can score goals, I don't think. Their defense is problematic, which does impact any interest I have in under. Though I think the setup for Bournemouth, I don't know necessarily that they see a draw means they're safe, because they can't think that with so many matches left to go. But I think a draw, it puts them still 9 points ahead of the league bottom. So that leaves Nottingham Forest and Everton and whoever else is behind them trying to crawl up the table. That doesn't necessarily eliminate one of the teams that are chasing them, but it certainly does put Southampton looking like they already look like they're getting relegated, but maybe that's not enough. That's probably too drawn out to think about. I think Bournemouth want 3 points. Are they satisfied with a point on the road? Probably to a mainstay that's been in the Premier League a long time. I would say yes to that. I like that quarter of a goal. And I do like the under 2.5. It didn't really look good. I think there's going to be good reaction to how poor the defense was in the last match against West Ham. Wow. It's all running together at this point, just combining names, but I don't love the Bournemouth offense, but I do feel like they have more than Southampton. This is just purely Southampton's a quarter goal favorite because they're at home. They need this victory, and ultimately there's probably enough people backing them because they kind of need it. I don't know necessarily that I believe in who they are, who they're trying to be. Southampton just look like a disaster that's going down, and I want to bet against teams that are getting relegated. So I like Bournemouth getting a quarter, and I like that 2.5 as well. Last but not least, Tottenham host Manchester United. Currently Tottenham a pick 'em. All the juice on Manchester United on the road. coming off 120 minutes in the FA Cup. They got them to an all Manchester derby in the final, which is a big deal. Over under is 2 3/4, very juicy to the over. Maybe we get a 3. The problem is, how do you trust the Tottenham defense right now? I imagine that Tottenham will close an underdog here. I mean, certainly right now at Pick'em, getting odds, they are an underdog, but I imagine Manchester United will climb up to a quarter goal favorite just based on how poorly Tottenham have looked. Their battles for Champions League, European positions, all these sort of things. Tottenham look like a team that I want nothing to do with. Their defense has been so bad. They tried the fourth back and literally brought on Darwin Sanchez after ripping him off as a substitute the week before, brought him on after 25 minutes because it was going so poorly, and then didn't really get better. I mean, if you really want to hold your nose and play under here, I don't think that's a terrible situation, especially considering, I mean, I want to put it on my list because Manchester United coming off 120 minutes with their injuries, but they have big defensive problems too. I think if you're looking to play under here, you probably want to at least wait till you get a 3, which you probably will get before this kicks off. Man, I don't know. I don't think I can bet Tottenham as a home underdog though, and that does severely impact the ability for this all to work out. So I'll put Manchester United under 2 3/4 on my list, as that's where the number is now. I don't think I'll be involved until I see a 3. And when I do see a 3, I hope that I'm asleep for the whole time so that I can miss it. For best bet for England, we're going to go through Spain next, then go through the Coppa Italia, wrap it up with an ultimate best bet. I'm going to go, I'm really interested in the Brentford match and under there. I think the best one though on the board is Everton at home under 2.5. I just don't think Newcastle will do a very good job of repeating their performance in this last match against Tottenham. I think it's impossible to do that, of course. But now we'll move to La Liga and we'll get into there. Cadiz hosting Osasuna. Currently, Cadiz a quarter goal favorite at home. Over under is 2, which we'll see a lot more of those, I think, in this league, especially after seeing Getafe close at 1.5 last week. Not sure we'll ever see another one of those, but we might because it's La Liga and they only score via penalty. So Cadiz currently a quarter goal favorite. Osasuna, who've not been playing well, but do have the Copa del Rey on their minds. That's, I think, what they're really trying to get ready for, though it's down the stretch. So they need to start playing a little bit better. They've been playing really poorly and do have Barcelona, unfortunately. Real Madrid in the final there. I'm interested in Osasuna. I mean, Cadiz, it's funny because they got a draw on Friday against Espanyol, playing so poorly. But I don't know necessarily that I really want much to do with Cadiz as a favorite. I still don't. They've improved so much. Their offense is so much better now. But they just really, as a favorite, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I lean to Osasuna getting that quarter of a goal. It's kind of a hold your nose based on how they've been playing, but Eze Abdoulaye, forgive me pronouncing that late night, but he's definitely who I want to back as the most likely to score in this matchup. I think total, I'd love it to see it climb to 2.25. I don't think that'll happen, so I'm not even going to discuss it yet. Girona then hosts Real Madrid. Currently Girona a 1-goal underdog at home with all the juice, almost all of it. Over under is 3, very juicy under. Real Madrid, they're used to playing in quick turnarounds, though I expect if there's ever a chance for rotation, not relegation, Real Madrid, oh my God, but rotation, it's probably this one. Good spot for Girona, especially because they're trying to fight to stay in the league. They're in a much better position than I think a lot of people would have expected for them at this point. Might as well just mention Cadiz currently 32 points. They're 2 points ahead of Valencia right now. And that's not great. I'll put it that way. But so they're fighting. They probably need that home win, and that matters. For Osasuna sitting 8th. They're 6 points behind a European position, potentially. If Real Madrid win the Copa del Rey, maybe only looks maybe only 5 points behind. So there's something to play for Osasuna as well, though they're kind of in a doldrums area potentially soon. Anyway, back to Girona. They're on 38 points, 8 points ahead of the last relegation spot at Valencia at 30. So they're in pretty nice position. I think they're going to play as defensively as possible and try to keep Real Madrid from scoring. They know a home point against Real Madrid is a huge, huge thing. So getting +1 and a single goal loss being enough to cover or at least push your bet is very interesting. I think if you're playing Girona, you want to make sure you get that one and don't lose it. I don't know that I trust. I mean, I trust the Real Madrid defense, but I think they can score a lot. So I don't know that I like an under that much, even though the 3 is certainly gives some value there. Next, we'll go to Real Betis hosting Real Sociedad. Currently, Betis a pick'em, but all the juice on Real Sociedad on the road. This will look like it's climbing to a quarter of a goal favorite on the away team, Real Sociedad, very soon. Betis is a ton of suspensions. I mean, they always do, it seems, but haven't been playing very well. I was hoping to get Real Sociedad here, but I don't know that numbers are going to flip. Probably won't. I imagine it will actually climb more on the Real Sociedad side. So the only thing for me to look at in this one is the under 2.25. I feel like Sociedad was dead under this weekend with Celta de Vigo and then got 3 goals in the second half, which that happens very often. So maybe I shouldn't be celebrating goalless first halves that looked like nothing was happening. One big mistake from Real Sociedad playing a center back that they hadn't really used before. And then the floodgates opened. They got a big win, though, huge for them, staying in Champions League qualification competition for that 4th spot. Real Betis thought they were part of that. They probably still are, but ultimately are not really close to the quality that Real Sociedad can offer. I don't know necessarily that under is the best way to go in this one, but it's really my only option because I didn't want to play Betis. Next, we'll go to Wednesday with Atletico Madrid hosting RCD Mallorca. Currently, Atleti a 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Mallorca on the road. Over under is 2.25. Very juice the under as well. My interest here is Mallorca getting 1.25 goals, also in that under 2.25. Unfortunately, Atleti really, I mean, they deserved a penalty late. It's amazing how fraudulent the La Liga refs are. Honestly, I should just stop betting the league because it's so gross how it happens. But I feel like there is money to be made here, especially if you can guess which side the refs are going to be on. I think you can always pick it's the big clubs, which generally doesn't work for an underdog player, I'll admit, because they're always favorites. But Atleti, I mean, they've been on a great run. They're probably very angry from the Barcelona finish, and it felt like Barcelona really didn't do much to them. Underdid cash, fortunately, so I didn't lose too much on that game, just split. But splitting is not the way to get rich in this game, unfortunately. So with Mallorca, they're going to play really defensively. They're going to sit back with a 4-5-1 or 5-4-1, depending on what Aguirre is throwing out there. And they're going to make this as hard as possible on Atleti. I feel like there's more safety, certainly in under 2.25. Mallorca, I don't really expect to score. Their goals are really set pieces or really just finding their big man in the box and finding a way to get his head on it. Atletico Madrid, I think, have enough of the feisty, tough, physical center backs that probably can limit that ability a little bit, which I think also reduces my interest in that side. Makes me more interested in the under 2.25 total. Getafe then hosts Almeria. Currently, Getafe a 0.5 goal favorite at home. Over under is 2.25. Very juicy the under, which makes sense because Getafe had a 1.5 that they went way over with 3 goals scored, I think, this past weekend. But it's a big price. Almeria's defense on the road has been really bad, but Getafe is a 0.5 goal favorite. I don't know where this comes from. Certainly, it's something, a match that they need. Performances have not been great for them. Currently, let's see. So Getafe are on 31 points, just 1 point ahead of the relegation positions, 2 spots ahead of the last relegation spot. Whereas Almeria are 1 point behind Getafe on 30, with a better goal differential, or excuse me, better head-to-head against Valencia, I guess, because they just beat them, but far worse goal differential. Amazing that Valencia is down there, but we'll get to them soon. I think Almeria's defense has been really problematic, but Getafe aren't really a team that's going to take advantage of that. They do have a decent 2-prong striker with Borja Mayoral and also Enes Unal, but their goals seem very fortunate that they don't really come very often. So I got to say, 0.5 goal for a team that doesn't score, that wants to play physical and really just beat you up the whole day. That doesn't make me feel like that's a really great idea. I lean to Almeria getting that 0.5 goal and also that under 2.25. Certainly more safety in the under there. I don't necessarily, I mean, Almeria has not been a great defense this year and they want to play aggressively attacking football, but I think they know, I mean, they're 1 point behind Getafe, so that does complicate things a little bit. They don't really want to still stay behind them, but I feel like a road point they see as a good result. So I think they might play a conservative brand, which will make Getafe try to come at them, which I don't think will happen. And I think there's a very good chance that this is a stalemate and goalless matches are perfect for dogs and under, as I've already said on this podcast. Celta de Vigo then hosts Elche. Great position for Celta, getting the worst team in the league that's preparing for life in La Liga, the Segunda División. Celta Vigo 1.5 goal favorite, over under is 2 3/4, just the under. Elche are fighting. They haven't given up, but they're 17 points behind safety right now. with 8 matches to go, only on 13 points this entire year, have only won 2 matches. Celta Vigo, on the other hand, have really kind of dropped off what was a really good pace. It looked like they were challenging from Europe after being like looking like they were in the relegation area. So incredible ups and downs for them, but welcome to 38-week seasons, I guess. Don't really, I mean, Celta de Vigo, they are an offensive side that want to play front footed. It hasn't really been going very well for them offensively lately, but ultimately, if there's ever a team to make it happen, it's Elche. And I think with unders on the team that's going down with a really bad defense anyway, I think I'm just going to skip that one. Rayo Vallecano then hosts Barcelona in the nightcap on Wednesday. Rayo, a 3-quarter goal underdog right now with a little bit more of the juice. Over unders 2.25, juice to the over, which is surprising because Barcelona have like the most 1-0 victories in La Liga history almost. They're close to setting that record with 8 matches to go. La Liga is essentially clinched. They've got no other competitions left. They keep getting these. They scored 1 goal, I think, their last 3 matches, certainly hitting unders for sure. I'm into Rayo. I feel like they took a 1-0 lead and then kind of capitulated. Unfortunately, didn't mark the tallest guy in the world, who's not really a big set piece guy, and on Alexander Sorloth for Real Sociedad last weekend. Also, I mean, it was a tough match. They're in good position. I really like them at home. They're awesome. I do want to see if this one climbs to +1 before it kicks off. If it doesn't, that kind of tells me the market's really supporting Rayo, but I think we might get a +1 before it kicks off. And I would love to have that push on the 1 when we actually get this match going. But also like under 2.25. I feel like Barcelona still has this like stigma that they're a really great offense and no defense. And it's literally couldn't be more further from the truth. Just as perfectly capitulated or encapsulated by the miss from Rafinha with an open net where he just knee barged it completely out of the goal instead of like literally doing anything just to direct it onto an empty net. So maybe it was a little bit fortunate to hit the under there, but I felt like Atleti should have gotten a penalty late to try it and equalize, but doesn't matter to Barcelona. All of a sudden, all the chaos is gone. They got a big win over the hottest team in La Liga. But I'm not a buyer. So I like under and Rayo there. Moving to Thursday, Valencia hosts Valladolid. For Valencia, I was trying to make this as big as I could at a half of a goal. Valencia, 3-quarter goal favorite, is gigantic and certainly does not represent who they are at all. They had a good win at Elche. That was basically a home game. They had so many fans in that stadium that made a 2-hour drive for the last match. I think it was the early one on Saturday morning. Big spot for them, but ultimately they're still not safe. Currently Valencia, as I said, are in that last relegation position, 30 points, or I guess it's the best one, but ultimately they're still not safe. All 3 go down here. So Valladolid, 2 wins in a row to climb all the way to 35 points in 14th, 5 points ahead of Valencia. I love Valladolid. I've really liked them for years. They've been really profitable for me. Maybe not as good of an under team this year, but it's really good for why they're in a better position to stay in the league after being relegated the last time they were in La Liga. They're going to go into Valencia and they have counterattacking talent. They have talent to score. Valencia has a really awesome. Cavani is a storied striker and set up their goal to take the lead last week, but I think you could argue that was just really, a long ball over the top, a header to release a forward was a great goal for sure. And they got a second one later, but I don't really trust them to score goals. Over unders 2.5 in this one. Juices split both ways. I feel like this is going to be a really tough struggle for Valencia, and the crowd will get more and more nervous every second that Valencia are not ahead. They have to win by multiple goals to take your full unit. The single goal loss for Valladolid will get you half your unit back right now at the current 3/4 of goal underdog. I don't think it'll hit +1, but even that, if it did, I'm in on that, I think. Under 2.5, I think, is also worth looking at. Valladolid's got a little more offensive firepower than you'd want. That's kind of a big total right now for La Liga. And this is one where I think Valladolid go on the road, know that a point will it won't keep them safe, but it puts Valencia in big trouble and makes Valladolid's case that much better. So I lean to Valladolid in the 3/4 and also under 2.5. Villarreal then hosts Espanyol. Villarreal go on the road to the Bernabeu, beat Real Madrid, and then lose at home to Valladolid, and then lose on a last-second goal from Sevilla, not really doing a good job of defending a corner kick. It's just it's disappointing. Holding a Villarreal ticket, seeing the coach flee in the middle of the season was probably the death knell. But then Villarreal have been playing so well lately. I don't really trust Quique Setien whatsoever, but he's been getting really good results. Can't argue with that. Currently, Villarreal a 1-goal favorite to Espanyol. Espanyol with all the juice on the road, over unders 2.5, juice to the over. Espanyol can't score and they can't defend, so that's a really bad combo. They look like the team that's going down. Currently, they are in the 19th position, so just one above the worst in La Liga right now on 28 points. They're not dead, but it looks like it. They brought in a manager who's going to just be offensive, which is kind of offensive because they haven't been able to defend at all. So bring in some hotshot guy that's going to play offense. It's just, I mean, there's so many bad decisions made by these clubs that you can feel the panic that they're like, oh, we're not scoring enough, so let's bring an offensive guy. And their defense was already problematic, and it's gotten way worse. I don't think I want to play them getting a full goal from Villarreal. Villarreal can score goals. They're going to play aggressively. I think if anything, I like over 2.5 in this one, which I know is shocking for me to say, especially in La Liga, but that's what we got. And then last but not least in La Liga, and then we'll go to Coppa Italia for a couple of matches, is Athletic Club. Weird having English named team in Spain and the Basque Country. But anyway, Athletic Club, a 0.5 goal favorite right now with all the juice to Sevilla. Over unders 2.25, juice to the over. Sevilla have a very offensive manager. Mendilibar doesn't believe in defense. Athletic Club have been scoring more goals lately. Always Unai Simon making a big mistake at the end of matches and to kill unders as well. It's been a kind of a rough run there, especially because fading Athletic Club as a favorite and playing their under was like a really nice hit for a long time. But I guess all good things come to an end. Sevilla, I mean, they had a huge comeback win, or I guess comeback draw at Manchester United, and then had a very lopsided victory at home. They've got a lot of motivation, a lot of momentum, especially with the late victory against Villarreal. I mean, as a 0.5 goal underdog on the road, problem is they're not going to play very good defense, but ultimately I feel like they're just as talented as Athletic Club right now at this point. They've done a lot of good transfer business over the January window. Jorge Sampaoli, though he's not there anymore, did bring in some good players that were with him at Marseille. They've returned a lot of the good players as well. Lucas Ocampos coming back was so important to them. I'm interested in Sevilla getting a 0.5 goal. I don't think that they're going to be a defensive side, though, and that's going to make an underlean feel a little bit more complicated. It does look like that might climb to 2.5, which, as I said earlier, is a big total for La Liga. So I'm interested in the road dog, but also the over. It doesn't really fit as well. I probably should say I'm interested more in the under when it climbs to 2.5 is probably the way to say it. But Sevilla are an over team, I think. And at this point in the season, I'm not playing unders with a team that I don't expect to be if I don't expect both to be playing towards under. So Sevilla plus 1.5 will probably be my best interest in that matchup. As for the best bet for Spain, there's a lot on this list, I got to say. I think my favorite, though, I mean, Valladolid under 2.5, I think is a really good one because I think there's a lot of pressure on that matchup. I think Valladolid are going to do the best they can to keep this as low scoring as possible. I'm also very interested in their side there too. I like Rayo a lot, but I feel like Barcelona, I mean, there's a time they're eventually going to break out. I probably will still be betting under there and saying because the streak only ends once and it can continue for a very long time. So that might be a good way to think about that one. Now we'll move to Coppa Italia, and then we'll get closer to wrapping this baby up because I'm ready to go to sleep. But anyway, here we go. So second leg Coppa Italia, Inter Milan a 1-1 first leg with a late Romelu Lukaku penalty to tie it up. With a lot of racial things said apparently to him. Inter Milan currently a 0.5 goal favorite at home right now. Over under is 2.25, juice to the over. Juventus, they rotated like crazy after their Europa League advancement, whatever we call it. They played, Sule as like the center forward behind Arkadiusz Milik, who's definitely not their preferred striker this weekend against Napoli, kind of showed, despite getting 15 points back in Serie A, that they were surprisingly more interested in this next match. I don't know how to explain that one, but maybe, they've had a hell of a time with trying to keep people healthy, so maybe they're just erring on the side of caution now. I don't really know what to say, but getting a 0.5 goal is a big number. I don't really know where that one really comes from. especially because Inter Milan have been playing so poorly. I don't think a tough match with Empoli this weekend on the road as a big favorite. They deserve their win. Lukaku was awesome. 2 goals and assist. Of course, a late one just to break my unders back. But ultimately, Empoli didn't do a lot to threaten Inter Milan after they fell behind. Lukaku had 2 goals that really were made out of nothing. And if he gets hot, it's perfect time because Inter Milan are fighting for Champions League right now, as well as Coppa Italia against their arguably biggest rival that's not in their same town, certainly. I do think half of a goal is too big for this one. I also lean to under 2.25 because I feel like Juve are going to go and try to take a 1-0 lead and then sit on and run out the clock. We've watched them do it countless times. Their fans don't like it, but I think it plays really well for unders. So I like it. And I think that half of a goal is too big. It's very juiced right now. We'll see if this one sticks up. I imagine it might fall to 1/4 of a goal by the time this one kicks off. But ultimately, Coppa Italia is going to play really tight. I think there's a good chance this goes to extra time. And the problem is if one of these sides goes up, then the second goal going in is very likely as the other team pushes to try to equalize. But that's not a guarantee. And ultimately, that's something that probably happens late in a match, and it might just get you to 2 goals, a 2-0 final instead of because I think 1-1 is still very conservative as they prepare for extra time and stuff. I love unders and underdogs in these cup competitions. So I like both there. And then last but not least, the Fiorentina Cremonese match is more of a formality at this point. Not completely because Fiorentina only have a 2-0 lead, but they got that on the road. Now they're at home, a 1.5 goal favorite to one of the worst teams in Serie A. I think probably the league bottom, so the worst. Cremonese currently a 1.5 goal underdog on the road with all the juice. Might fall down to 1.25, but I feel like there's probably enough Fiorentina money to come out. Fiorentina's defense was really bad this weekend. Collapsing really twice in 1 week, really bad against Lech Poznan, a Polish side as well in the Conference League that they surrendered a 4-1 lead on aggregate, did end up advancing, I think, in regular time, so it didn't have to go to extra time. But 2-0 lead to Monza this weekend as well, and got absolutely blasted after that, which is surprising, but good for me because Monza was on my card. Didn't expect a win after they fell behind 2-0, but here we go. Over-under is 2.75, very juicy the under. And that's just a monstrous number for this. I mean, Cremonese sounds like they're going to go for it based on this price and on the total. And that leaves them wide open for Fiorentina to score goals. And Fiorentina's defense has been bad, but I feel like if there's ever a time for Fiorentina to focus on defense, it's here. They didn't play very well, clearly, in their last 2. I think it's a good statement spot against a really bad offense. Cremonese, incredible run to the Coppa Italia semis, but they are a bad Serie A team that shouldn't be here. So I think for my biggest interest, I do like that unders in both these matches. And that's probably what I'll go is I think it's a little more safe than the Juve plus 1/2 of a goal, especially if they take a lead. I think it'll be very safe because Juve will try to run the clock out as much as possible. And it's really not a bad time to bet against Inter scoring goals. I imagine Lukaku, considering how well he played, that he will be in the starting lineup. But ultimately, I think I'll pay to see Lukaku put 2 awesome matches back to back against each other, right following each other, and especially on a quick turnaround from Sunday to Wednesday, playing against a much better defense like Juventus. So for, I guess it's almost ultimate best bet time. I did promise to shout out the patrons because they deserve it. Thank you so much for your support. I'll start with, I guess, who's been with me the longest. I think that's most important. If I could find this, it's amazing. If I could find where I somehow lost. Oh my God, where did this go? That's not it. Anyway, as I stall to try to figure out how to make this any sort of thing happen here, but I just don't even understand. Did I kill it? Where did it go? Okay, here we go. So actually I'll go. So most recent, Alex Cardenas, thank you for coming in. Robert Toby, you've been a few more days. Appreciate that. Bryce Buckmaster, awesome name. Appreciate you as well. Jed Ronalds before, appreciate that. Kevin Welsh. We're now into March, by the way, so you guys have been with me for a couple of months. I appreciate that so much. Michael McKee as well. You were number 2, right behind Michael Robinson. Thank you all for coming along for the ride. I know it's been a little bit of a process trying to get it all together. I'm also thanks to I think it was Michael Robinson who pointed this out, that we should get Discord going so that it's not just me kind of giving content and you guys commenting on what I'm putting out there, but working on trying to make this as good as possible. I think it's a really good value compared to, I mean, there's certainly great value in what I'm offering at pregame as well, but you're getting everything you can want and more because you get all the sports. They're not split by whatever sport is out there, because I usually do baseball picks separate from my soccer picks. Everything's together with this one. So check out the Patreon. It's patreon.com. So that's the real_G Warner. I highly recommend it. It's a much more affordable price than what you'd be paying on pregame. Plus you get all the leans, all the immediate, once I lock something in, you're getting that notification right away. So I suggest you check it out if you're into that type of thing. So I guess other than that, if you're on YouTube, please hit subscribe. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. It's really helpful for me. If you're on Twitter, hit the follow button, the real_G Warner on Twitter, of course. Slide in DMs. I answer everyone I get as soon as I see them. I try to, and we'll keep doing that. Do a little bit better answering my Patreons though, so you might want to check that out. And so I guess now it's time for the ultimate best bet. Let's make sure the Instagram machine is on. So this is betting the pitch number 190. I'm the real_G Warner, and this is my best bet for midweek. We have in England, I'll go with Everton under 2.5 goals. In Spain, I'll go with Valladolid under 2.5 goals. And in the Coppa Italia semifinal second leg, I'll go Juventus under 2.25 goals. So like unders this week, not a surprise if you've been listening to this podcast at all. My best bet, my favorite one of this week will be Everton under 2.5 goals. I think it's the best one because Newcastle coming off a thrashing of Tottenham on a quick turnaround. I think it's very unlikely they're scoring the same amount of goals they did against Tottenham. Of course, that would be an easy loss, but ultimately Newcastle are a good defense. I think they're going to be in a situation where they're going to be attacking the whole time. Everton are going to be sitting back as deeply as they can, knowing that the best way for them to get a point is to keep a clean sheet. If that happens, they have a good shot at maybe finding a goal on a set piece or something like that. I think that Newcastle's big back line will cause a lot of problems with that. Plus Fabian Schär might be injured, and that will cause them to be limited a little bit more on offense. So bet Everton under 2.5 as my best bet. Betting the pitch number 190. And that'll do it for this episode. It's late, 12:46 local time, but who needs to sleep? You can sleep in your dad. I still have to shower and all that stuff anyway. But anyway, thanks for coming along. I really appreciate all of you, of course, to the patrons as well. I highly recommend you guys should get in there. It's a really good value. Feel like would be a great idea. If you're not on there already, you get everything I'm going all day, recaps, write-ups before they go out on Twitter. So check it out. And of course, we'll be doing this again. There'll be an MLB pod coming out Thursday night. Probably also a soccer pod coming out Thursday night as well, because I don't sleep. I just podcast. I'll see you guys soon.